Okay, good evening. Today the shiur is about something in the Parashat Eikev, but is also connected with the upcoming Yortzeit of the Rebbe's father, Chaf Menachem Av, the 20th day of Av, which is this coming Monday. And the Rebbe brings something, a very, very fascinating lesson that we can learn from this week's Torah portion. When we read in this week's Parsha about Moshe Rabbeinu continue describing to the Jewish people before they enter Eretz Israel about the events that happened throughout the years, the 40 years in the desert. And he talks about the major event. We're talking about the Shvirat Haluchot, the breaking of the tablets. This was after God gave the Torah on the Mount Sinai, and Moshe Rabbeinu Moses went up to the mountain for 40 days. And before they had a chance, the Jewish people committed a terrible sin and they made a golden calf. And when Moses came down the day later with the tablets that God gave him, Maaseh Yedei Elokim, the hand made by God, and he saw what happened, it says Moshe Rabbeinu broke the tablets. Right next to it, Moshe Rabbeinu talks about the death of Aharon. When Aaron passed away. That was in the last year before they entered the land of Israel. Our sages tell us why does these two stories mentioned together is because there is a connection. Says the Gemara, it says, Kashe mitatan shel tzadikim. It is difficult, the death of the righteous people in front of Hashem, just like the breaking of the luchos, just like the breaking of the tablets. That means there's a comparison between these two things, the breaking of the tablets and the passing of the righteous people. Says the Rebbe, the fact that the Torah compares these two things, it's not just because these two things are difficult things and there is a comparison. The Rebbe says there must be a comparison in the contents of what is the death of a tzaddik and what is the breaking of the luchos. Says the Rebbe, there is a fascinating thing. There's a question that is a very strong question regarding the breaking of the luchos. You see, we find that the Torah says when the Jewish people used to go out to fight the wars, they would carry with them the ark, the holy ark. Now, which ark was going with them? The ark that had these broken tablets. Because there was two arks. There was one ark that had the second set of tablets that that Moses made, and God gave it to him after he asked forgiveness for the Jewish people. But this ark didn't go out with them. The ark that traveled with the Jewish people in the desert, when they went to fight the wars, it was this ark that carried the broken tablets. Now, this is really something that needs explanation, because when you go out to war, you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very careful with every particular. The Torah says the way the Jewish people went out to war to fight the war, whether it was to conquer the land of Israel or other types of wars, they needed to have. They picked the people to go to the war. They were very carefully picked. Now, how were they picked? They didn't check necessarily their fighting abilities. They didn't check their muscles. What they checked is whether they were tzaddikim or not, whether they had spiritually, if spiritually they were good. If there was a problem spiritually, if some of them had some fear that was maybe they were not good enough, they would be sent home. You don't go to war. Why? Because when you go fighting a war, you need to have all the greatest merits that can help you to fight and win the war. It says, "Vaya machanecha kadosh." When you go out, when you go out to fight the enemy, you have to make sure the camp should be a holy camp. So that brings the question that why in the world would they choose in a time like that, when they go out to fight the war, why would they choose to bring with them the broken tablets? The broken tablets reminds us of this most terrible sin that ever the Jewish people committed. Why would we have a reminder right then when they go fighting a war, a reminder of this terrible sin? Obviously, there must be something about these broken tablets that it is indeed a very positive thing. And this is what the Rebbe is going to explain. There is something very positive in this, something that is even those people who go fight the war, which are tzaddikim by themselves, they themselves can also learn from these broken tablets to improve themselves. And similarly is when we're talking about the death of tzaddikim. So what is it? Says the Rebbe, number one, we have to understand that when the Torah says, kashe mitatan shel tzaddikim, that the death of tzaddikim is difficult, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It means it's difficult, it means it is a challenge, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. Where do we see it? How do we know this? Because we find a similar expression also when we're talking about Kriyat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. One of the most wondrous miracles that happened to the Jewish people, the splitting of the sea, there too the Torah says, Kashe ki Kriyat Yamsuf, difficult like the splitting of the sea. So therefore, we see from here that in the what says difficult regarding the death of tzaddikim and regarding the breaking of the tablets is not necessarily a bad thing. Says the Rebbe regarding the tablets. What was the tablets? So the Torah says that the tablets, it says there was two aspects to the tablets. Both of them very holy, spiritual. The tablets, number one, it says, Ve'aluchot ma'asei Elokim heima. The luchot, the tablets, are handmade by God. God made the tablets. It wasn't a physical thing, something that came from this physical world. It came from a spiritual world. Obviously, it was a physical tablets, but God made tablets. That's number one. So the tablet itself, Maseh Elokim. The second aspect of the tablets is the writings. It says, "Va'michtav, michtav Elokim hu charut al haluchot." The writings was also a godly writings in the tablets that was engraved in the tablets. So we have two things. Now, what happens? Moshe Rabbeinu carries these tablets coming down from the Mount Sinai. Carrying these tablets that it is a godly tablets and has godly writings. And then, as soon as Moshe Rabbeinu comes down to the mountain and he sees what's happening, he sees the Jewish people doing those terrible things, all of a sudden he sees, it says, Ra'ah sheparach ktav me'alehen, the writings flew away from the tablets, and then he said, Eich ani noten le'em le'Yisrael, how can I give the Jews these tablets, she'en ba'em mamash, has no validity, has nothing to it. Then he says, I'm going to hold it, I'm going to break it. Okay, that's what he did. He took it and he broke it. But the question is, why? Why break it? Okay, it flew away. What does it mean it flew away? The letters flew away. It means that the godliness, the light of Hashem in these letters flew away. The holiness of the letters flew away. But what about the tablets themselves? The tablets themselves are also godly. It is God-made tablets. So why break it? Why did he have to break it? If maybe you should bury it, something. Says the Rebbe that here is something really, really important lesson here. It says the tablets had these two aspects to it. We learned this week in the Tanya also that everything has two aspects. There is the body of it and there is the soul. There is the matter and there is the form of it. A letter has a body of the letter, has the soul of the letter. And the question is, what is the most important thing? And here Moshe Rabbeinu realizes one thing. When he got the tablets from Hashem, it could be the greatest thing. It is godly. But once the writing of Hashem, the soul of the tablets, became engraved and became one part with the tablets, because this is the difference between writing that is written with ink and writing that is engraved. Writing that is written with ink, it can stay for a while and then it can go away, it can be erased. But writing that is engraved in the tablets becomes one thing with the tablets, becomes one thing with it. And therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu saw that the spirit, the neshama of the tablets is gone, he realized there's only one thing to do. There's only one thing to do. It is nothing what this is really. Until you recognize the soul of it, you appreciate the body, but once you recognize the essence of this, you recognize the soul of the tablets. Now that this is gone, then the other aspect, the exterior aspect, is really ein be'em mamash. It doesn't have this validity, because you realize that this is not what it is. You know, think about an artist. If you're an artist writing a picture, painting a picture, and anybody who comes and is going to look at the picture says, wow, what a beautiful painting, this is amazing. But the artist, he's so particular. If he's going to look at the painting, he's going to see there was one tiny problem there. It's going to kill him. It's going to he wouldn't be able to look at it. He says, no, there's something missing. But the friends will tell him, what are you talking about? This is such a beautiful painting. But when he sees something that needs to be perfect, he's an artist and he appreciates what it means to be perfect, then he's going to say, no, this goes to the garbage. It's nothing. There's nothing to it. It's missing the soul of it. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu recognized. You realize the soul of the tablets, and when you realize that this was gone, he said, that's it. I can't. And that's why he broke it. And in fact, it says that when the soul of the luchot flew away, the tablet sort of became heavy and he dropped it. That's one of the explanations. Says the Rebbe that this is similar to every single human being. That this is what happened when the Jewish people, when they went to fight the war, they chose the best of them. They chose the tzaddikim. They chose those people who are pure, those people who are perfect in the spirituality. But yet, they tell them, when you go fight the war, take with you those broken tablets, because those broken tablets will remind you that no matter how good you are, you have to squeeze yourself and you have to find the best. And just like the tablets reminds us that if the best is gone, if the spirit is gone, then it's nothing. You can be even godly work, just like every human being. We're godly. God created us. But once we realize, once we recognize what is our job, because what was the wars that the Jewish people were fighting going into Eretz Israel? The war was a milchemet mitzvah. It was a mitzvah war to go fight in order to conquer the Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, in order to bring godliness, spirituality. And their job was also to influence the rest of the world to follow the laws that God gave, not only to the Jewish people, but also to the people of the world, the Gentile, the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach. That is the message, says the Rebbe, that this is a message for every human being, that when, even though you know you try the best and you reach the level of a tzaddik and you are able now to go and fight the war, you have to know, remember the broken tablets. Remember, don't be happy, don't be satisfied with what you are. You got to reach to the next level. You got to reach to the spirit of the level of the neshama. Says the Rebbe, that is what makes the comparison between the breaking of the tablets and the death of the tzaddikim. Why? What's the connection? Because by tzaddik it says that tzaddik ein lo menucha. Tzaddikim en le menucha. Tzaddikim have no rest whatsoever, not in this world and not in the world to come. They constantly go higher and higher and higher. Now what happens in the time that it passes? The time that the tzaddik passes, it says it is every year. There is in the yard side, it goes up to a much, much, much greater level. Indeed, the entire year, tzaddik goes up higher and higher and higher. But when it comes the day of yard side, it goes to a much higher level. And that's the idea of the death of the tzaddik. What is the death of the tzaddik? In order to reach a higher level, not only a higher level, higher than before, but is totally not in the same realm. It says, Sheva ipol tzaddik vekam. The tzaddik falls in order to get up. So there is a going back in order to get up and to reach even a much, much greater level, shelo be'erech, not even in comparison at all to the previous level. And that is the idea of amitah, the death, the physical death, is in order to nullify the previous existence in order to reach a higher level. And that is exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu did with the breaking of the luchos, the breaking of the tablets. Says the Rebbe that this is true also regarding the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, he was the rabbi of Yekaterinoslav. Then it was called, today it's called Dnepropetrovsk. And he fought for Yiddishkeit, to keep Judaism alive in the time of the communism. And he was arrested for that. And they tortured him. And they sent him to exile. And it says the exile, in a way, it says in the Torah, exile is just like death. When a person is exiled away from his family, raised from his people that he knows, from his homeland, and he's with strangers. But what did he do when he was exiled? What did we do? What did he do? He made sure to continue. He was exiled. Along with him, there were some Jews. There were some non-Jews that were with him in prison. And he continued there, and he taught them, and he educated them, brought them closer to Hashem. This is the tzaddikim that continue their work with such devotion, with such great selfless devotion, risking their life, giving their life in order to get higher and higher. Says the Rebbe that our job is to learn from these people, from these tzaddikim, and especially when you connect to them and you study their Torah, that makes you connected to them. And this is something that enables us to reach higher in our neshama, that we have to find what is the best that we can do. We should never be satisfied with what we do, always reach higher and higher, and by doing so, we will find more depth. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we should all be zeicha to find the best in us, and we have to understand that every challenge that we have, no matter what kind of challenge, is only there to make us stronger. I heard a very fascinating story from a person that told me the story this week about his grandfather. This person's name is Rabbi Friedman. He's a 10th generation from the Rebbe Rabbi of Anipoli. Not named after him, but he's a descendant nevertheless. So he tells me about what it means. We don't know what Hashem does. He tells me a story about his grandfather. His grandfather was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Grossman, I believe. He lived in Hungary, in a city. I forgot the name of the city. I can find it out. And in that city, the people, when they wanted to buy an esrog, they had to travel elsewhere. So he wanted to go into the esrog business. You know what the esrog is, yeah? Esrog is what the blessing, what we make on Sukkot, on the holiday of Sukkot. We have the lulav and the etrog, the citrus fruit. Now this etrog, this citrus fruit, is very expensive because it's very rare. You have to find the esrog, you have to find with the right shape, with the right, it should be clean, it should be the right size, and it's very expensive. It's a big business. So people buy, and they go and they purchase the esrogim and they sell it to the Jewish community. So he decided to buy the esrogim and bring it to his town. So he traveled. He didn't have any money, so he borrowed money, and then he took the money. He went and he invested, and he bought a large amount of esrogim and he put it in a boat and he brought it back to the city. Problem was that when it came to the city, there was a strike, and his merchandise was released the day after Yom Tov. The day after Yom Tov, nobody needs any esrogim, and all the esrogim is worth nothing. The guy lost so much money. He said if he would have worked for 100 years, it would maybe pay back half of the loans. In any case, he tells me, back in those days, he says there was a custom, a Jewish custom, that when you borrow money, you give back. I don't know about these days today. But in any case, he was thinking, what do I do? How can I pay back the debts? Until he decided that he's going away, he's moving to America, not to run away from the debts, on the contrary. He decided he's going to move to America and to work and send back the money. So he moved to America and he started working. But then the war broke out. And he survived the war, unlike his people in his town. And he built a whole family here. And then he realized what Hashem did for him. When those people went on strike, And he lost so much money, he thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to him. And then that pushed him out of Hungary and pushed him to America and saved him and saved his family. Obviously, millions got, some that passed away, perished in the Holocaust, and that's not the subject of today. It's something we don't understand. But when you look at this individual case, when you see that whatever Hashem does, even though sometimes it looks terrible, you see that it's something good. So we have to see these challenges, and we have to see what is the best, to squeeze ourselves to the best, whatever we can do. Never be happy spiritually. It says, who is rich, the one who is happy with his share. But this is only true in the material things. But when it comes to spiritual things, never be happy. Always strive to do more. Even in the face of challenges, keep going, keep pushing, and Bezrat Hashem will be successful. So thank you for listening, thank you for joining, and if you please share this on YouTube as we're going to put it on YouTube. And also, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and talk now.